All right, and we are back here on the GSMC Football Podcast. And for the third part of the show, we are going to talk about the Detroit Lions and whether or not I think they're Super Bowl contenders. But before that, I just want to remind you guys for donations and tips and get your comments recognized, make sure to go to streamelements.com/gsmcsportsnetwork./tip. Again, that really helps the show. It's also on the ticker on the bottom. Once I get back to showing my face again. And then for bonus coverage materials that are not covered by this live broadcast, make sure to go to patreon.com and search up GSMC Sports Network, and that is where you can find all the exclusive content for all the podcasts here on the GSMC Sports Network. And yeah, again, for the donations and tips, it's on the ticker on the bottom, so make sure to do that. We greatly appreciate that. So let's get into this topic. Talking about the Detroit Lions and whether or not I think they are Super Bowl contenders. Now, I did get a comment on one of my videos, and that was, asking why I had the Lions a notch below the 49ers and the Eagles. And for me, I mean, listen, the 49ers up until this past week, now they're still the top team, but in that moment, it's like the 49ers are we're by far the best team in the NFL right now. I mean, it just look. I mean, people are talking about them, finishing with an undefeated record. Obviously loaded on offense, loaded on defense. But, this past week against the Browns, they suffered some injuries, and they ended up losing the game. So it shows that they could be beat, especially if you have a very good defense. And with the Eagles, too, because I had the Eagles ranked ahead of the Lions, too. Again, that's a team that you got to give respect just because, and again, that team went to the Super Bowl. Both of these teams were playing in the NFC Championship game. The Lions were not a playoff team last year. And Jalen Hurts, up until this past week, has been playing, I think very well. The defense, that's been a little bit of a concern, but, they're still respectable. I just looked at the Eagles and the Niners as, the teams that are ahead of the Lions. I would put them in their own tiers, and the Lions, like I said, is a notch below. Now, again, I think the other thing, too, is how you define what a notch is. So maybe your interpretation of what a notch is different from mine. That was just kind of like the wording that I used for it is just, they're a notch below these teams. I still look at the Lions as a very good team. But I wasn't ready to, I'm not ready to put them, and I still kind of am not, based off of what I said with the power rankings, to put them, ahead of the Eagles or the 49ers. I mean, the Eagles, I think definitely they are, they're kind of neck and neck with the Eagles right now. They are. And the main topic for this segment is, are they Super Bowl contenders, the Lions? The answer is yes. I think they definitely are. Because now especially, you see how bad the 49ers and the Eagles both lost. I think the gap has closed. I still, again, would put the Eagles ahead of them. And I did mention, too, I mean, these two teams did play each other, last year. And, the Lions, they lost by 3 points. It was 38-35, I think the final score was in that game. I mean, the Eagles, I think, had a comfortable lead for the most part, but then the Lions, they kind of backdoored it at the end. But still, and now this year, I mean, the team's even better. I think the Lions are a Super Bowl contender, and especially when you look at the conference, it's not as loaded as the AFC. I think they are still the third best team. But they're definitely in the conversation to maybe surpass the Eagles. I still am not ready to say that yet, but I think they're Super Bowl contenders because I give them, solid chances to beat both of those teams, the Lions and the Eagles. Because the Lions, their defense continues to improve. I mean, on the road, they kind of, shut down the Bucs offense that was, playing well. You got Mike Evans and Chris Godwin, so it's not easy going up against them, but Lions were able to do that. I mean, they went on the road and they beat the Chiefs first game of the season. Offensively, Jared Goff has played very well. I mean, they also went on the road and they basically dismantled the Packers in Lambeau. They run the football well. Jared Goff is playing well. I mean, getting AmonRaSt.Brown back this past week was huge. Jameson Williams had the big touchdown catch. And the defense, I think, is coming along. So the combination of all those things, I mean, who's to say they're not a Super Bowl contender? I think they definitely are. Now they're tied for the same record with both the Eagles and the 49ers. Again, I'm not saying that they're better than those teams right now, but they're definitely in the conversation for that. I think for me, though, if they go on the road and have to play these teams in the playoffs, let's say, it's going to be tough. It's definitely going to be tough. We do have a comment from Anthony in the chat. He said, only team in the NFC I worry about playing at their home is Lions, Niners. Also, Niners also need a veteran kicker. Well, I mean, they did have Robbie Gould, and then they kind of just said goodbye for him. But, for me, listen, if the Lions got to go on the road and play the Eagles and the Niners, like I wouldn't pick them to win those games. But right now they're tied now for the best record in the NFC. So if the Lions are able to get home field, I mean that changes a lot of things. And Jared Goff has played in a lot of big games. Obviously 2018, they got to the Super Bowl. Although he was a deer in headlights in that Super Bowl. I mean the Rams, that was one of the worst Super Bowls I've ever watched just because it was boring. I think what was the final score? 13-3. It was just awful. But he's played in a lot of big games. It's a young team. They're hungry. Dan Campbell's really put this team in a great position. You got to like what they're doing. And I think especially after this week with what the Niners and the Eagles did in their games, I mean, who's to say that, the Lions can't, do the same thing against them? Because I think really the key for them is their defense. If their defense continues to play well, they could definitely go into Philadelphia or even going into San Francisco and beat these teams. Because, listen, the Lions, they got a loaded offense too. Now, obviously, AmonRaSt.Brown is becoming a household name, but let's see. Anthony said Robbie Gould would have had the Niners at 6-0. Niners thinking too much pressure on the rookie kicker. Yeah, I mean, I guess that could be the reason why he did miss those kicks. I mean, hostile environment in Cleveland because the crowd was going crazy for that. I don't really know what the story was behind that for them letting go of Robbie Gould. I didn't really look into it, but yeah, I mean, I guess they had faith in this rookie kicker, and hey, he's kind of the reason they lost. I mean, they got to put up more points, obviously. But yeah, I mean, that was kind of an interesting thing because he's been a serviceable kicker for them, and they kind of just let him go. So, but I don't know. I don't know what the story was with the. Oh, actually, did he? Now that I think about it, did he retire, or did they just let him go? Now we need to look this up because now I'm curious. Let's see. Well. This was in March 4th of 2023. He said, I'm nowhere near retiring. He says, it says Robbie Gould plans to leave 49ers to play elsewhere in 2023. So that was back in March. I don't know the specifics behind that, but that's just what I saw when I just looked it up on Google. So, but yeah, I mean, really what this all comes down to, I think they are Super Bowl contenders, the Lions. Elite offense, defense. The defense really is what's kind of been holding me back personally from putting them, with the Eagles and the 49ers. But the defense is forcing turnovers. They got good young players on that side of the ball. Aiden Hutchinson, obviously. So listen, I think they could definitely beat the top two teams, in my opinion. And even on the power rankings, like I just talked about, they have the Lions ranked over the Eagles. And I think they should, especially after, what the Eagles did this past week. I mean, they got shut out in the second half. So, but yeah, we'll just have to wait and see. But I think at the moment, The Lions look very good. I mean, Jared Goff is playing at an MVP level at the moment. Running the football well. Yeah, I mean, I think the sky's the limit for what this team could do, because they're definitely winning their division. No one's catching up to the Lions. Especially because what I saw out of the Packers last week against the Raiders. Yeah, I think this division is wrapped up. And the Lions are still dealing with some injuries. I mean, David Montgomery, they left the game, so they had Craig Reynolds running the ball. They're waiting on Jahmyr Gibbs to come back. But yeah, I think the Lions are a team that you got to take very seriously, and I'm happy for them. Because again, like I said, I'm a Dan Campbell guy, and I talked about the other day how it was possible that he was going to get fired at one point. But they finished the season strong last year, and now they're on their way to being one of the best teams in the NFL with how they're playing. So, he's got them in the right direction, and we'll see where they end up. But I think after this week, you really got to consider, hey, maybe they are Super Bowl contenders. I think they are. I think they are. Again, the defense is what concerns me. Also, Jared Goff, although he passed for 353 yards on Sunday, we've seen what Jared Goff has done, in some road games, especially in the cold weather. I think back to 2018 against the Bears with the Rams, he was really bad in that game. Also 2 years ago against the Packers in Lambeau when it started raining and he just could not do anything. So that's something to keep in mind, because once we get into January when it's cold, that's something you're gonna have to deal with the elements. So, that's just 2 games I could think of. But if the defense continues to play well, I think they could beat anybody, because they got a lot of playmakers on offense. So, but yeah, so that's pretty much it. Let me know what you guys think. What are your guys' views on the Lions and what they potentially could do this year? But yeah, I think once again, they're on their way to winning the division, so they're gonna host a playoff game. So then it just all depends on how the rest of the year pans out. Could they be a top 2 seed? If the Niners or the Eagles slip up again, we'll just have to wait and see. So that's the end of the third segment here. So when we get back from our final break of the show, we'll go through the standings, where everything is after week 6, and then that'll basically be it for the live portion of the show for today. So stick around, and we'll be right back here on the GSMC Football Podcast.